What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Very troubling news coming out of uh, politics in Canada. Essentially, Mark Carney admitting, without realizing it, what his true plans are for Canada and putting it out there in the open. So, again, this video is going to highlight just what Canada is in for if Mark Carney were to become Prime Minister of Canada in the next election. While we see the crowds that are going absolutely questionably insane mentally, not by any mean of describing insane by numbers, but mentally insane and deranged as they're at the polls to vote for Mark Carney, I would question how anybody could at this point. Now, before we get into this video, I want to encourage everybody watching this. Make sure you hit a thumbs up with a like, share this on your socials, put a comment down below. All those help us push forward past YouTube censorship, past the algorithm. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please hit that button. Make sure you subscribe. It helps the channel even more than all of those things. Turn on your bells for all notifications and make sure you follow every Canadian political content creator on the platform. I discussed earlier this morning Mark Carney's budget to initially go further into deficit than what Justin Trudeau had done. And that's been made public. That's been revealed. Canadian Taxpayer Federation exposed that. But this is where we start to question, can we really afford 4 more years of Liberals? The answer is no. If you do a little digging into Mark Carney, I want to highlight this article because we showed this article on the channel. I know it's CBC, but we showed this article a few weeks back when Mark Carney was telling CBC reporters to look inside themselves when discussing his assets, discussing his financial assets that he doesn't want to make public to anybody. Now, keep in mind, the Prime Minister, when you are Prime Minister of the country, you are to disclose, you're to remove yourself from any board that you are on. You are not allowed to influence or give contracts to companies that would benefit under your jurisdiction, your payouts, your portfolio. So Mark Carney had to distance himself from Brookfield. Now, a lot of things came up with Brookfield saying, look, you just moved them to the United States. He says, I wasn't part of that. Yes, he was. We already know that. Many people have questioned, why was Brookfield moved to the United States if you believe in Canada? Well, he doesn't want to answer those questions either. He gets very angry when asked about his assets because, as you can see by the look on this demon face, this man cares nothing about the country. He's here to do the same thing he did to the EU. He wants to absolutely bankrupt Canada, and we have proof of that in this video because he's let it slip without knowing. He thinks we're too stupid. Well, we figured it out, folks. I want to cite some of this article before we get into that proof, just so everybody knows what page we're on here. From the start, however, Liberal leader Mark Carney's past work in the private sector and rules that govern the assets of political leaders have also been in the spotlight. Carney has said he put all of his publicly traded assets into a blind trust, and he'll have no control over what happens to those assets while they're in there. He also said there will be a conflict of interest screen to prevent him from taking part in any discussions or decisions that involve Brookfield Asset Management or Stripe, since he sat on the board of directors for both companies. The Ethics Commissioner's Office has yet to post Carney's financial disclosure, and Carney has been tight-lipped on what exactly he put into the blind trust. According to Brookfield Asset Management's 10-K report filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Carney has had $6.8 million US worth of unexercised stock options as of December 31st. However, shares of Brookfield have dropped since then, and the Prime Minister's office won't say whether Carney exercised the stock options before he put his assets in the blind trust, whether he sold shares, or whether the trust is now holding stock option, which doesn't expire until 2033 or 2034. Nor has Carney revealed what other assets he may have placed in the blind trust. When asked about his assets, Carney repeatedly said they all went into the blind trust, with the exception of cash, a cottage, and their family home. This is lies. It's all lies, because Mark Carney won't disclose if he's going to be receiving any more payments from Brookfield or Stripe. This is a huge conflict of interest. If we go to the French debates, and a lot of people maybe missed this, I know I did, in the French debates. Mark Carney, when asked about the environment, when asked about what do we do with our oil and gas sector, what do we do to benefit the environment, how do we move forward, do you think we should move into nuclear? We'll take a listen to what Mark Carney had to say about that.
Well, yeah. It's a choice that Quebec and the provinces will make, but we have a major advantage here in Canada. We have uranium. We have big nuclear companies, including Westinghouse, CANDU, and others, and
right there is the slip. Did you guys see it? Did you see it? Let's go again. Let's go again.
For a couple of reasons.
Across Quebec, in Ontario?
Well, yeah. It's a choice that Quebec and the provinces will make, but we have a major advantage here in Canada. We have uranium. We have big nuclear companies, including Westinghouse.
Right there, he just violated his job as custodial prime minister. He's promoting a company, the company Westinghouse. And a lot of people say, well, that's not Brookfield or Stripe. I would beg to differ. Here's an article on Westinghouse's website. I know it's not completely central, but I'll show you what we're talking about here. Westinghouse acquisition by Brookfield and Cameco is now complete. As we scroll down here, Brookfield owns a 51% interest in Westinghouse, and Cameco owns 49%. Brookfield is pursuing the opportunity through Brookfield Global Transition Fund. Down here, BTGF. This is the key here. Brookfield Global Transition Fund is the fund that Mark Carney is putting in Bermuda in his questionable 3-story bike shop, his tax haven. And Brookfield owns 51% interest in Westinghouse. But Brookfield has a 51% stake, which means controlling interest in Westinghouse, and Mark Carney is now promoting Westinghouse on the French leaders debate. Why didn't any of the other leaders bring this up? Did they miss it? Is it? I know the Conservatives have since had mentions of this, but this is a big slip up. When you think about Arrive Scam, when you think about Dalian, when you think about all the billions in contracts that were given out through Trudeau's regime, this is billions more that will be funneled into government contracts for companies that stand to benefit and line the pockets of Mark Carney. This is why he wants the job of Prime Minister. Has nothing to do about Canada First, has nothing to do with elbows up, has nothing to do with Team Canada or Donald Trump or fighting tariffs. It's all to make him rich beyond belief. And again, he will not disclose if Brookfield or Stripe are giving him further payments off of his stock option. I want to show something else here just to back this up even further. I showed you guys this video multiple weeks back again from Table Salt, saying breaking, a video has surfaced of Mark Carney stating that he offered pro bono consulting to politicians. I brought this up at a time when Mark Carney was being questioned as to how can he run for prime minister. You'll see the video where it was titled, I believe on this channel, is he illegitimately running for prime minister? Is he disqualified from being prime minister? A lot of people were mad about that, saying, well, no, he hasn't been disqualified. He said he did it pro bono. He goes out of his way in this video to mention that it's pro bono, but he also mentions something else that it's labeled here. It's so that Brookfield shareholders could profit from policies. This is massive. Again, take a look at the conversation and then we'll point it out.
If funding, which is now increasingly available, or capital, which is now increasingly available, is the second step and policy is the first.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you may be seeing a path back to the public sector?
Well,
policy?
I do spend some time advising on
what, again, pro bono, but advising on the types of policies that are going to have maximum impacts for investors. So I'll give you an example, which is one of the issues. It's not the biggest issue. It's like 2% of global emissions. You wouldn't know it from the headlines, but 2% of global emissions is for air travel, the emissions from air travel. Now, so the question is, are we going to have green, sustainable aviation fuel? What's happened in the UK, the EU, is they've said to major airlines, look, if you're flying in and out of Heathrow or wherever, you have to have 10% of your load has to be sustainable aviation fuel by, I think it's 2030. Consequence of that policy has been to convert some entrepreneurs in Texas, in this case, a company called Infineon, to become economic. Because all of a sudden, American Airlines, British Airways need to buy that fuel. They'll pay a green premium. You've got an offtake, that's high credit quality, and so in that case, we Brookfield put $1 billion to work there, and it's a fantastic opportunity.
It's a fantastic opportunity. We put $1 billion to work with Brookfield. So again, this is all, and keep in mind, he was the governor of the Bank of England. He ran England into the ground. And he's basically bragging about it right here, that, hey, we put $1 billion to work out of it. We pushed policy. And he even goes on to state that in this video.
The point being, without the policy, the policy has to drive it and drive things down. So yeah, I'm dodging your question.
I know, I know you're dodging
and
the
look
question.
at the policy has.
So he's dodging the question, but here's where he says it. Here's where he says it.
The policy has to drive it and drive things down.
Policy has to drive it and drive things down. So as Mark Carney mentions Westinghouse in the French debates, he's pushing policy. He's going to push policy in Canada as Prime Minister to hand out billions in dollars in grants, billions in dollars in contracts, and billions of your taxpayer-funded money to Brookfield to make himself and his friends filthy, stinking rich. Mark Carney, if he was a smart individual, now he's liberal, so obviously he's not, would refrain from mentioning companies. You'll notice that he mentions companies every time he's talking about money, that, oh, these companies benefited. Oh, Brookfield put $1 billion to work. Oh, we use Westinghouse. It's a great company. He would know when to shut up and just do these things once he's prime minister. But of course, and this is the one thing I'm grateful for, he's stupid. And he keeps mentioning these companies and incriminating himself moving forward. The question I have is, as we move forward with ethics, as we move forward with conflict of interest, how is this legal? How is he allowed to drop names like that on camera in live debates out of his mouth, basically waving the corruption in our faces, and not be disqualified, not be replaced, not be charged, not be in breach? Somebody please explain it to me in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know how much trouble you think we're in if this guy becomes prime minister. This is where I've said Danielle Smith has threatened a national unity crisis if this guy becomes prime minister. It's not because, oh, we can't stand another liberal government. We're in the biggest fight for our lives, for our freedom, for our country, for Canada to remain Canada. This man is going to demolish our flag. Let me know your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, again, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Please like, share, comment, get it out there, folks. This cannot sit on this channel unwatched. This information needs to be put out there. Make sure to help out. It costs nothing. Share it out. Hit your bell for all notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show, where I sit down with the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we go back and forth throughout everything that's happened this week in politics, everything we know that's happened in the weeks leading up, and or everything that's coming ahead, sorry, as well as back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.